Hi, welcome to my channel if you're new, welcome back if you're a subscriber. Oh my gosh, it feels like it's been years since I last posted a sit down video. My life has been so busy these past couple months, but I am so freaking excited to just be back here talking about books with all of you. I've got everything set up. It just feels right to be in this chair and great. So I can't wait to discuss all of the books that I read this year and all of my favorites. I do want to say that I'm going to do a runner-up list because so many of these books I had trouble narrowing down. I wanted to do just 11 books. I was actually trying for 10, but it ended up being 11. And I just really wanted to narrow it down, but some of the ones on my runner-ups are almost on this level too. So it was really difficult for me. I just feel like this reading year, I read 100 books, and since I read so many books this year compared to my previous years, I just had so many more options to choose from, so it was harder to narrow down things. So keep your eyes out for that video. I have my list planned for that and it should be up really soon. But without further ado, I want to share the books I read, and if you want a video about stats, I can do that as well. Just let me know if you want to know my reading stats and the genres I read and everything. I read some mangas this year, which was a first for me, and I can't wait to read more, so I would love recommendations for those in the comments as well. But let's get into it. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about these books. So ratings this year also were kind of hard for me. I was really clear on my rating system last year, but this year I just feel like so many books I didn't really know what to rate them. I just either really loved them, kind of felt like a little disappointed by them, or I disliked them. So all of these books I really loved. If I were to put ratings on, they would definitely be a 4.5 to 5-star read for me. I just am not going to specifically say what I rated each one of these books because honestly I don't really know. I haven't been doing that as much lately. I do on my Goodreads sort of have like a general rating, so if you want to follow me on Goodreads, you can see my ratings that I gave books. But as I've reflected back, you know, this year has been really long and I read a lot more than I usually do. And so, you know, some of my feelings have changed about books looking back and kind of comparing them to what I read later on in the year. Some of my ratings have actually gone up. So go follow my Goodreads if you're curious for ratings, but let's get into the video. So the first book that immediately comes to mind for one of my favorite reads of the year is The Lies We Told by Camilla. And this was so surprising to me because I had picked this up kind of on a whim for a Book of the Month add-on, and I didn't have many expectations for it. I was like, the cover looks cool, but I hadn't been hearing a lot of people talk about it, so I had really low expectations. And a subscriber actually recommended it, and I was like, if it's their, you know, favorite thriller of all time, I really should check it out. And so I checked this one out and I listened to it on audiobook and I was blown away. I was flipping the pages like crazy, and it just had a really interesting concept. So you're following two different storylines. So you're following a woman in the 80s who has a daughter who is showing kind of sociopathic tendencies, and she starts being afraid of her daughter. So you have that storyline, and then you also have a present storyline where the main character's boyfriend has gone missing and she's trying to figure out what happened to him, and it seems like he's abducted. So you alternate in the chapters and you're learning about these two storylines, and you're sort of wondering if they'll connect and how they'll connect. And I just thought it was a really cleverly done thriller. I would recommend not reading the inside cover or really anything about this book. I would just mostly go in blind and stay along for the ride. It was great. I was so intrigued by how the mysteries were unfolding, and the lies and layers of deception were just really wonderful, and I was completely hooked in this one. So I highly recommend this one. For some reason, the name of this book is my main issue with it because The Lies We Told, for some reason, that name just does not stick around in my memory. Like, it's a very forgettable title. So that's the only problem I really had with this book. But besides that, you know, I love the cover. It was a great story, very fast paced. I flew through it and I would highly recommend this one. The next book on this list is Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins, and this was another really surprising read for me. I freaking loved this book. I know so many people were a little bit disappointed because they thought it was just ridiculous, and this book is a lot more about the drama between the characters once they get to the island rather than kind of action happening in the island. But that is something that I really love when it's done well, and I felt like this was just done so well. It's definitely a popcorn thriller. It's definitely more about drama, gossip, juicy secrets and details and how these characters connect. But I really love this one, and I love a good rich people drama story. I flew through it. I listened to this on audiobook, and this was perfect too because it made me feel really like I was on an island, and it gave me that vacation vibe, which sometimes you just need that escapism, especially during the winter time. You know, it's so cold in a lot of places and you just need to escape. And I felt like this was the perfect escapism book if you don't take it too seriously. The ending is a little bit ridiculous, I'm not gonna lie. A lot happens at the end, but I was just along for the ride and loving this one. This one is about Lux and her boyfriend, and they are on this island and get hired by these rich tourists to basically go along on the boat with them and go to this private kind of island that has a history of being scary, and they all decide to go to this remote island and check it out. And Lux immediately starts bonding with the passengers, and once they get there, there's another couple there that they weren't expecting. They're expecting it to be totally deserted, and drama happens. That's all I have to say. The next book was also a surprise. I feel like this is sort of a common theme with my favorite reads of this year. I didn't have much expectations going into these certain books, and they just took me by surprise. Something about them just totally drew me in. I love them, and all of them for slightly different reasons. But this one is Teen Killers Club, and this was so kindly sent to me by the author of this, Lily Sparks. And this one I was really excited to receive in the mail, but I didn't have super high expectations for it because, first of all, it is a YA book, and YA sometimes can be a little tricky for me because if you don't know, I am 25 and I'm just in a totally different life phase that I was, you know, when I was in high school. And so some books just feel very high school to me and I don't connect to as well. And yes, this did feel young in the way that the characters were young, and there was a little bit of like a teen love triangle that I wasn't super into, which I know some people may really love. But I just thought the rest of it was unique enough and the characters were deep enough and they had such interesting backstories that I really connected to this one on an emotional level, and that really surprised me because, you know, it really went a little bit deeper than I thought a YA would go, and it also went pretty dark, which I really loved. So I would highly recommend this one. This is a series. I read the second one. The third one hasn't come out yet, and the second one I did not like as much as the first one because it was very much focused on the love triangle in one of the relationships. But this first one I thought was really top tier, and I would highly recommend it. So this one has a big mystery element. The main character, Signal, has been framed for her best friend's murder, and she can't really remember what happened that night, and so she's trying to piece things together. And since this murder trial, she has been classified as this Class A criminal, which is basically a criminal that is the most dangerous to society. So she goes to this camp, and when she gets there, she realizes she's with a bunch of other teen killers, and they are being trained to be assassins. So they're at this camp, they're all interacting with each other, and she's not a murderer, so she feels really scared, obviously, and on edge. Everybody thinks she's a murderer. She starts building relationships with the other campers and realizes that not everything is as it seems, and she starts learning about their backstories. And I just thought it was very interesting. I loved the audiobook narrator, and I was just really enjoying piecing together, along with the main character, what actually happened the night of her best friend's murder. The next book I'm going to talk about was actually my first read of the year, and I was obsessed with it. I was so excited about it because it is a creature feature book, which I really haven't read much of, and I didn't really think I would like a creature feature, but the way this one was done was just so well. And it is The Shuddering by Ania Ahlborn. I still am not really sure how to say that author's name. Honestly, I half the time don't know how to say all authors' names in general, so please don't come for me in the comments. I don't know, but this was such an amazing book. It is about a group of friends going to this cabin, and it's isolated in a snowy setting, and they basically are snowed in there and stuck in during a snowstorm, and soon it becomes clear that there are creatures kind of outside that want to hunt them down one by one. And this one, it gave me Major Signs vibes. That movie is so good. I would highly recommend rewatching it. I recently rewatched it and loved it again. I know the ending is ridiculous, but besides that, such a good movie. And this one gave me serious Signs vibes. I was so annoyed by a lot of the characters in the beginning, and I literally was so excited to watch them be picked off one by one. I was like, I don't care. There was some drama, there's like relationship stuff going on. But then I started really caring about the characters and I got really emotionally invested in them, which really shocked me. And some of the scenes in this one, I was literally holding my breath. It was so intense, and this one also felt very cinematic. It was wintry, and you would cut to scenes with the creatures each chapter with different people, and then you would cut back to the main characters. And I just really loved that format. It kept me really engaged, kept the stakes really high, and I would highly recommend this for an isolated setting winter book. Also, the ending of this one was shocking. I did not expect the ending. All right, the next book I want to talk about is My Dearest, Darkest by Kayla Cottingham. And I feel like if you've been around on my channel for any amount of time, honestly, you would know that I love this book so much. This was an ARC I received, but then I had to go out and buy the physical copy because I found a really good deal at Half Price Books, and I've been wanting to own this anyway. I really love the vibe of the cover. But this one is a dark academic sapphic horror YA novel, and wow, did this one just blow me away. So the atmosphere in this one is incredible. The girls live in this lighthouse. Also, you know, it just has dark academic vibes, so all of the buildings are so beautiful on this campus. And that was something I really loved. I also really got invested in the love story in this one, and the horror elements in this one were really creepy. And some of the scenes were really intense, which I was not expecting in this one. Sometimes, like I said, with YA, it kind of holds back a little bit, and this one didn't hold back. It was excellent. So this one really reminds me of the movie The Craft. So if you love that, you'll probably love this. But basically, these girls are making a deal with this creature underneath their school that this creature promises to give them all their wishes and make their wishes come true in exchange for something. So the creature wants small things at first, like a fingernail or something kind of minor, but then it progresses and gets more and more sinister. I highly recommend checking this one out, and it's just such a great read. All right, another YA book. I'm surprised how many YA books made it to my favorites list, but I read some really great ones this year, and this one is The Mary Shelley Club by Goldy Moldavsky. And first of all, the cover is stunning. I love the binding. I love how it's a knife. Love that touch. And this one is super amazing for fans of Scream. So like I said, The Craft, definitely check out My Dearest, Darkest. And if you're a Scream person, I would check out The Mary Shelley Club, because this book really gave me those vibes. And sometimes I almost forgot that the main character wasn't Sidney Prescott. To be honest, I was really imagining Sidney Prescott as this main character. But this is a YA book about this secret club at this school where they play elaborate pranks on each other, and they sort of recreate horror movie scenes, and they try to have people actually really terrified and elicit real fear. But soon someone starts to target the club, and they're kind of being picked off one by one, and the main character doesn't know how to trust, and she's also a final girl herself because she survived something in her past. So that's all I need to say about this one. It's a very fast read. I was flipping through the pages so fast. I had to know who the killer was. You can't really trust anyone in this one, and I would highly recommend this for fans of Scream. All right, this next one is the perfect adventure island thriller, and it is The Island by Adrian McKinty. And how I said that Reckless Girls was more about the drama and not very action-filled, this is the exact opposite. It is totally action-packed and really reads like a movie. This one was amazing to listen to on audiobook because the audiobook actually had sound effects, which I usually don't encounter in audiobooks, so that really added to it. So I would highly recommend this one. This also is being made into a Hulu original series, according to the cover, so that's pretty exciting. While I was reading this, I totally imagined this as a screenplay. It just would work perfectly for going to screen. So I really hope that that happens and it's well done. But this is about a family who go on vacation, and they end up at this private island, which they sort of like bribed their way to go to because they wanted to see more wildlife. And so they are taken over on this boat to this island, and they want to just take a few quick pictures and kind of sneak out before the people who live on the island find them there, but an accident happens and they end up being held captive and they end up fighting for their lives. And this is just the perfect survival thriller. The stakes are so high because they're obviously trying to stay alive. They don't have resources because they're on the run or they're being held captive. And so you get that really high stakes situation. And I was so annoyed by the characters in the beginning, but once again, I grew to really care for them by the end. And I would highly recommend this one. This one is such a good time, and there are some really dark moments in this that kind of caught me off guard. The next book is The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torre, and this one is such a fun read. I flew through this one, and this one has a really, really unique concept. So it's about this cam girl, and she has gone into this line of work because she has locked herself in her apartment because she has murderous tendencies and is a serial killer, but she doesn't want to harm anyone. So she makes a ton of money camming, and she has, you know, an array of different clients. But one of her clients is particularly disturbing to her because he seems to have sort of a fetish for young girls and makes her pretend to be a young girl. And then on the news, she sees that this girl who basically fits the description of who she's been pretending to be for this guy, and she thinks that he is responsible. And so she decides to venture out of her apartment and try to save this girl. So the stakes are very high, and you get perspectives from the predator, which is very intense. You see the predator interacting with this girl before, you know, the little girl knows any red flags, and it's very, very fast paced. I ordered the rest of this series, and I'm really excited to keep reading. I love the ending of this one, and it just reads extremely fast. The next book I don't own physically, but it's Runtime by Catherine Ryan Howard, and I am so glad I enjoyed this one. I was actually really nervous that I wouldn't enjoy it because a lot of times books have this really promising synopsis and you're really excited to jump in, but they don't live up to it. But this one I felt like really did live up to the synopsis. This book is very meta, very self-aware, and it's a little bit hard to explain, but basically this actress is hired to last minute come onto this horror set because the previous actress has just left. So she goes to this movie set and it's in this remote location. And so she's there, and the movie that she's doing is a movie about a woman who's in her similar situation. So she's acting out these scenes, but she's in the situation. And then also the things that are happening in the script start happening to her in real life. If that sounds confusing, it kind of is, but when it's in the book, it makes total sense. And so you don't really know what to believe throughout this whole one. And I have really, really vivid memories of just lying down on my bed, closing my eyes and listening to this audiobook and just kind of watching it play as a movie in my mind. And I love doing it that way. I really felt immersed. I felt like I was watching a movie, and it was really great. I will say the ending was fine. It wasn't the twist that made this book for me, but it was the isolated atmosphere, that creepy cabin in the woods, and you don't know what's happening. She didn't know if they were playing tricks on her. It's just a really fun time, and I highly recommend this one. So we're almost to the end, but I want to talk about Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. That is the longest title ever to say, but this is one of the most unusual books I've ever read. And it has one of the most unique formats, but man, does this book pack a punch. Oh my gosh, the end, I didn't even realize it was the end. I had to keep reading, and I realized, oh, it's going on to another story because the ending was just so like, what did I just read? So basically, all you need to know about this one is it starts off as somebody posting on a forum trying to sell an apple peeler, and then it just kind of goes between I don't even know what else to say. They're trying to sell the apple peeler, and then they meet someone else who they're going to sell it to, and then those two start corresponding and start forming this relationship. That's really all you need to know. You are reading through emails and through instant messenger, and it takes place in the 2000s when the internet was still fairly new. So it's very interesting, very disturbing, has some body horror in it, and just went a place I was not expecting. So I would highly recommend this one, and I just keep thinking about it to this day. I read it and immediately told everyone around me the book who was willing to listen and like the whole story, because I knew those specific people weren't gonna read it. So I was like, can I just tell you what I just read, because that was a lot. And then the last book is 12 Nights at Rotter House, and this one is by J.W. Oker. And wow, this was a great haunted house story. I don't know why I put it off for so long, but I just have, and I finally read it. It's pretty short, and I was able to basically read it all in one day, and I loved it. The twist at the end of this book is awesome. I loved that it went there. It was such a great twist. And this one is also very, very self-aware. It's basically about this author going to this kind of known haunted house and staying there for 11 nights. And he's staying there reading about his experiences, and also his friend comes along, and they're both huge horror lovers. So they're constantly talking about horror movies, trying to figure out if this place is haunted. His friend believes in paranormal activity and he doesn't. So it's that interesting juxtaposition of them interacting with each other. They use a Ouija board, weird things start happening, and that's kind of all you need to know. I would highly recommend this one. It has a great isolated, eerie setting, but also it's pretty meta, and the end was a wonderful twist. The last two books I want to talk about are mangas, and first I want to shout out Uzumaki by Junji Ito. It was an amazing, scary, terrifying story, and it was one of the first mangas I had ever read and really got me interested in reading more. Since then, I've read a lot more from Junji Ito, but this is still my standout favorite, and basically this is about a town that is being haunted by spirals. If that doesn't sound scary, I promise you it is. Believe me, you will read this, you will be traumatized. The artwork is incredible, and it's following the same characters through many, many volumes. I had just the one that had all the volumes in one, but I highly recommend this one. It is so good, and Junji Ito has an amazing brain to come up with some of the things in that book. And then the last manga I want to talk about is Blood on the Tracks by Shuzo Oshimi, and wow, was this amazing. I read, I think 13 volumes by now, 12 or 13 volumes. They are really, really easy to fly through. And all I need to say about these is it's about a son who has a very, very strange relationship with his mother. It gives me Bates Motel vibes, and it is extremely disturbing. It reads sort of like a thriller and a horror. It kind of, I can't choose which one it fits more into. I guess maybe more into a horror because of how disturbing it is, but it has some amazing plot twists, and wow, I am just super intrigued by the story. I can't wait to see where it goes, and that is all. All right, so those are all my favorite books of the year. Again, I have a list of more. I believe I have 10 more to talk about, so stay tuned for that next video. Please let me know in the comments what your favorite books of the year are. I would love to know, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye.